Okay. It's 1:38 in the morning and I can't sleep. There's the character of consciousness happening, and so there's myriad situations in play. Okay, and so I'm going to actually have to make a video, which I have been meaning to do, and this is the video. So much has happened. So the things that have happened off the top of my head. There's been reactions to my efforts to tell people of what is going on. And it's very good, but the seriousness of the task that I am doing, it's something that's a great honour that the universe would ask me. You know, I've been nurtured, and I may have said something about this, but I have been nurtured my whole life to do this. Now, like I've taught in the 8 laws discussion, you know, is when I was a very, very small child, I had a series of dreams, and in those dreams, there were certain things presented to me. Now, for a long time, they actually resembled nightmares. But actually, these are the very base realities of what I was going to experience. And it is largely the two sides, consciousness and anxiety. And the human side of it, like, it was represented in these dreams. And so here I am, this milestone event of beginning the mission, and refining the articulation. This is a kind of joyous experience to go through that. When the refinement occurs and is enabled, and yeah, so today, like what I want to do is read a couple of things that I've written. And these things are spontaneous reactions to things I've seen in events that have taken place. One is one concerns the new Israel law, where they have removed Arabic as a official language of Israel. And so there's that thing going on, and there was videos and people were pronouncing their feelings about this, and so I wrote this comment. The other is to Richard. Hello, Richard. Who, well, we were both in the Sun and Moon Family United chat on the live show, and we've been talking a little bit, and you know, there has been my spontaneous expression about that, and so I'll tell you about that. I'll read that. And then there's something I want to say about the world situation, and something I've found out because this battle between anxiety and consciousness is going on around us all the time. But in the big game, you've got Donald Trump that's trying to express consciousness, while the forces around him that are anti-Donald Trump are really obviously empowered by the belief that anxiety is virtuous. Okay? And so this outfit there is a corporate business. And when Trump became the president, he gave his whole company away to his kids. And so there's two very, very different philosophies at odds with each other there. So here we go. So if you go into YouTube and you can see the videos, you can type in Israel New Law and it will come up about this new law about they have Arabic is now not the official language in Israel. So here's this comment I wrote, right? Go to my Facebook page and I have something that explains Israel since I made the amazing discovery of the grand amnesty. So let's stop there, right? Now, the thing is this heresy that is to make criticisms about Israel. Okay, this is exactly replicating the function of anxiety, right? Okay, and so this actually is why the revelation of the 8 laws, it actually is the most anti-Semitic document ever written, because it totally speaks to the issue that is driving the problem, and it's not a matter of them being Jewish. Okay? It's nothing to do with it. In fact, the person's race has zero to do with all these politics. It's got nothing to do with it. Anyway, go to my Facebook page and I have something that explains Israel since I made the amazing discovery of the grand amnesty. Anxiety is actually a political entity because it governs language and thought. As a political entity, there is the political correctness of anxiety. Because the political correctness of anxiety is the conventional wisdom, it has become a deity to people. And what Israel is actually doing is setting up the causality that will give them justification to attack. As it does everywhere from inside the family home to the US deep state foreign policy to corporate Wall Street getting the result of getting bailed out trillions of dollars after ruining the middle class. So it replicates the function of anxiety because it plays its game to get maximum damage, and then it turns around and plays maximum victim. And so there's you go, this replication of anxiety again. This alone replicates how Israel causes offence, and when the reaction comes, the massive attack follows. Anxiety heavily promotes self-interest. Anxiety compels one to prevail over other people. Anxiety has the compulsion to control what is being said. Anxiety continuously is adamant the sky is falling. Anxiety is actually a form of dementia. And it is in the group setting the political correctness of anxiety that can exist, because it is an instinctively intuitive thing. And this is how a group of disconnected individuals can gravitate to the same understanding. This is the real genesis of the Jewish religious belief that they are God's chosen. It's all because of the freak accident of consciousness finding itself here in the physical realm. It is the event of birth that culture shocks anxiety into existence for the baby that does not possess language. The baby thinks with political optics, and this is why there is no answer to the situation or the social calamities in the world's societies. The problems all have their genesis in an anxiety, and people only have ever promoted anxiety as wisdom when trying to say anything about it. And this pattern of circular logic empowers the cause of the problem, reinforcing the beliefs of the cause and entrenching this logic as conventional wisdom. Anxiety, the political entity, is the cause of the problem, as well as the reason for the lack of solutions. Because conventional wisdom is the cause of the problem, as well as because conventional wisdom is that anxiety is virtuous. For example, religion replicates the function of anxiety as events in the mind, and that is that anxiety is virtuous. It has the same political aspiration as anxiety. Because the political optics of the Jewish worldview, religion, is that anxiety is virtuous. Objectivity dictates that conflict is Israel's happy place. So you can see that it's true, because you can see anxiety, how it runs the mind. You can see that people that believe in courage, how they deal with anxiety, right? And then you can see how people that believe that anxiety is wisdom, see how they deal with anxiety, right? And so you got the event in the mind, that, you know, just visualize that relationship in the mind. Okay, and look at that fence in Israel at the moment. Consciousness is trying to deal with this highly toxic cancer. What it thinks is, you know, it's got the political optics of a highly toxic, cancerous thing, you know. And so they're saying, as a general principle, there is something really wrong with this picture. Okay? And that replicates the event in the mind as well. You know? And so people might start acting out really crazily, like picking fights with the police. When they're in a situation in the police there, they actually start an argument with the cops, because this is the red flag that I think something fundamentally is way out of line here, you know what I mean? Now, nobody can articulate that, while conventional wisdom is that anxiety is virtuous. Nobody can articulate that. And so, that's that relationship that gets replicated. And so people tune their relationships to fit that to fit that ideal, because that's what people are used to, you know. And so Israel does this, right? Israel does this, and I'm saying that this is a thing. It's not the Jewish. It's not actually. It's not their perception of history. It's not like my new coined phrase. It's not their. It's not their cultural belief identity. Because the cultural belief identity turns everyone onto autopilot. Political autopilot. And that's what they've done. They've got these huge things in their perception according to their history. And this sets the cultural belief identity. So in the West, where our cultural belief identity is these great things and these great pillars we have, which is education, it is science, it is work, it is reinventing things. And we can see the car, you know, the car's the obvious thing, but everything gets that treatment. We just can't stop trying to make something better. And that's according to the character of our consciousness. And so this is our cultural belief identity. And but in this format, we can't fucking see that because we think that anxiety is virtuous. So that's the two instances. Actually, it's that we think that anxiety is wisdom. Okay. When it's in the imperative, it's then a case that anxiety is virtuous, because then you are like preempting situations with that logic, and that sets the causality to organise things as per what makes anxiety happy, right? And so this is all I can say with I mean, Trump moved the. Why, I don't know why Israel needed Trump's permission to move the bloody capital to Jerusalem. I don't know why they needed Trump's. I don't know why they needed America's thing on that. It's like, why do they need America's permission about that? And so that is the political optics, that they're not a country. They're not a country at all. If they need America's decision to do that, is the American government the government of Israel? So, but there we got the, you know, this is why no president's ever done it, is because, see, there, now that they've done that, now the big head swell happened, right, eh? And what's their true colours? Yeah, you got the big fight going on at the moment. So anyway, I put that on like 30 different YouTube videos about the new Israel law with all sorts of different TV stations, right? And so, because this is the truth of it, this business of thinking that anxiety is wisdom, this is driving all sorts of stuff, man. With all these, it's all put into a conflict format, and it's like people can only communicate like it's all a big competition. And that's why I've come up with the idea that and that was a spontaneous thing on the radio, actually. The establishment consider that politics is a sport, which is what they do. That's how the media refer to it. They think that politics is a sport, and the media are all up for engaging with it like that. It is a sport. But to the 99%, politics dictate quality of life. So while they're in charge of the political sphere and they consider that politics is a sport, this is the thing that's happening to the middle class, is we're being used in a sport like we're some piece of equipment. And so that's something about that. It's an observation, man, and you know, This is the actual fact of it, okay? And see, that's the distinction about this business of how language is used differently by different groups, okay? It has this different outcome where they consider that politics is a sport, and we consider it that it dictates quality of life. Okay, so we have a far higher respect of politics than they do, and so yeah, this is something that needs to be put on the table, man. This thing of the different use of language, it is absolute evidence that there's different political situations. The media are supposed to be working for the good of the country, and the government is supposed to represent the people, and so it's quite something that they use different language to us. Okay, that's this observation. Anyway, so Richard, he's been emailing. We talked to him the thing because he had he brought up this issue of the secret bank account thing, and I remember Santos Bonacci. He was talking about that. You can look him up on YouTube, like Santos Bonacci. He's Australian, right? And he's got this thing where it's these political mechanisms where the government knows that the public's perception of certain terminology is not the same as the government's perception of that terminology. And so there's a secret world that exists because the two groups use different language. Well, the two groups use language differently. They have a different language. And so you get this different outcome. And I've since gone to a link that actually Richard put up of Richard Harris. Mind-blowing detail. And the instance where in the legal world we exist as a person, and that is completely different to being perceived as a human being, and that this has taken over the whole of civilization, the legal world, right? This is why there's a whole lot of problems in the world, because it's all about this political protectionism that exists when you believe that anxiety is virtuous, right? Political protectionism. And so they don't mind, they like and find it quite useful that we believe different terminology than they do, because that is very nice according to their political protectionism, keeping people back, keeping people underneath you, right? And so this mechanism of being considered as a person and not a human being is quite something. Once you, what did it say? Richard Harris, he had this word for it. Can't remember what it is. It's something or other by acquiescence, which means if you don't respond, you are liable for it, right? So if they send you a bill in the mail and you ignore it, well, then they send debt collectors after you. And this is strange because they need you to acknowledge your name to them. So like when you're talking to the police, if you tell them your name, you have actually made a contract with them, because the police represent a corporate body, okay? Because now I'm looking into it, see what it's like for New Zealand, but in England, all the parliamentarians are registered as companies, the police force is registered as a company, and it's like everything's registered as a company, fire brigades, And so when you give them your name, you're actually forming a contract with them, and that makes you liable for whatever they say. And so that's that rabbit hole anyway. And Richard's, we've been talking that, and I, I was inspired, and I biffed out about 2,000 words in this email just by spontaneously going, wow. And I thought that was quite magic. And because that's really consciousness speaking, when it's a spontaneous expression, that is the high quality communication going on, right? Yeah, so we're talking about this business of the secret bank account thing, and that kind of thing, and so this is this email I wrote back about it. Yeah. This is great because I'll get a pointer because it's like, okay, this is great because under this legal format, considering this bank account thing, it would be really something if it could be the money tree for me. Because, like, I'll explain some things in the way. Okay, they not only get your bank account and register that as a company on the stock exchange, right? But they open a bank account for you, right? Because they use your birth certificate as collateral. And so when you've got like 10 million people, and how much productivity those 10 million people generate, they get loans. The government loans X amount off the bank based on that, right? And that's the debt system, okay? And so they open these secret bank accounts for you while you do that. So that's what that means anyway. That's what I was talking about there. Establish how to go about that for others, and that includes all the people in the system that are trapped in this way of things as we are, meaning the people in the banks, the people in the bureaucracy, the cops, they're all people. Like, use their own rules against them. The big takeaway in John's lecture is how we become a person and what value that has to the legal outcome. If one has been duped into going along with that, like John said in the vid, it's not money that is of value to them. We are the money they want. Because we are the value, we are the productivity, and this is what it's all hinged on. And so this is the theatre going on. Okay? And this isn't like down the rabbit hole. This whole business of how the government is configured to control us, this is only halfway down the rabbit hole, right? This is great because as I've brought the revelation of the 8 laws forwards, it's a case of anxiety, and more specifically the instinctively intuitive political correctness of anxiety becoming an actual personality to the point that it is a deity, godlike, if you didn't know. Okay, deity. The two come together like the movie The Matrix now. The deity has political status in our world because as a deity it has personage. And our world has created this replication in keeping with the political optics of anxiety. They're using the fact that consciousness acknowledges anxiety. They have this legal mechanism based exclusively on the political jurisdiction of the 8 laws of anxiety. This creates the interface between consciousness and the legal mechanism. And that is the slavery. Okay, that is the slavery. Using this issue of the 8 laws of anxiety and consciousness's relationship to that, and how the legal system is created with that as the presupposition. That is the legal presupposition. This is like the Matrix, where anxiety becomes a real person. And with all these votes of confidence and great pillars of society that are out of the respect that this deity gets, this is like the Matrix, man. And this is a lot of how we are. It's like we're jacked into the Matrix, like in the movie. So this legal thing, this is that thing going in the fucking socket. And see, the movie The Matrix, this is like in keeping with the language that we have. You're not specifically allowed to talk about consciousness, and so you get these stylistic representations. Okay, that's as much as the human race has ever been able to muster, including people that are talking specifically about consciousness. They've only been able to have a stylistic representation and in what amounts to a romantic pining. Like, they talk about it like we don't have it. They talk about it like it's a separate thing to them. You know, and that's a friggin' big problem with the communication about it. It is not a separate thing to us. And that's the significance that I've found, that there is no language to, you know, there's actually no language that's fit for purpose to actually talk about consciousness, and there is definitely no language to express consciousness at its 100%, right? Because we instinctively conceptualize the process according to the means to express. Okay? And that is why language is not fit for purpose to communicate consciousness. That's really what it is, right? And then within the first two laws come into it. You must conceal your anxieties, and you must allow all others to conceal their anxieties. And because of the political correctness of anxiety, you're actually scared about what that is, so that even retracts things even more. And that all happens at the quantum level of thought, and then we think something. Then we're allowed, after that process all happens, then we can think something, and then we speak. And here's the civilization we have. Because this has been going on as long as people have been talking. I'll carry on. This is amazing to bring these two realities together. The true relationship between the people and governments, and the relationship between aristocracy and the people. My conclusion is that all this theatre, all the mechanisms of control, it's all a replication of the function of anxiety and the extrapolated out replication of the culture shock event of birth. It is Groundhog Day forever, because that is the political optics of the control. It is keeping us in that moment after the culture shock event of birth. It's trying to keep that fresh in our minds. It is trying to, it adds things to our experience that brings value to the event of why anxiety has hijacked consciousness, right? And so, now the revelation of the 8 laws has separated anxiety from consciousness. We can think objectively, while we figuratively hold anxiety in the hand and examine it for its function and mechanism. Yes. From where and what are we looking from and with? From where and what are we looking at what and with? The revelation of the 8 laws proves consciousness is real, and this is the total game changer. It completely removes from the mind these 8 laws control over language and thought. It is an amnesty because nobody alive now or during history has known of this truth. Nobody in history has known of this. And as the awareness of the revelation has one immediately become objective about the political entity anxiety, the people can achieve the same result in this question of the control the governments and elites have over the world. It will replicate in the event in your mind when you become aware of the revelation of the 8 laws, and that's what will happen. Exactly like you drop the baggage, like it's this is how we will deal with the government. And so this is the important thing that has to be done. We have to actually have in place a memorandum of understanding that we may have governance over the people, but according to the values of consciousness. That's what this amnesty is for. Because we know what? If we have the amnesty, you're aware of the amnesty, we instinctively know how to do that. We are always doing that. We are always doing that. It's only extrapolating it out. It's only replicating that from the little group. You know, it's how you are in your mind when you don't have anxiety and you have consciousness and you're rolling with consciousness. And this is why people love motorcycles. This is why people love painting. This is why people love music. And we're very familiar with consciousness, actually. And so that relationship in our own minds, and we do all the stuff. And then we get together. And we immediately gravitate to having a good time. We immediately, it is a good time. Because coming in contact with someone you bonded with, your consciousness is bonded with, it immediately expands your consciousness as soon as you see them. And this is what love is. This is love, right? And so this is something that's going to be not that difficult to do once everyone is aware of the revelation of the 8 laws. Because everyone has consciousness. Race and language has zero to do with consciousness, because consciousness does not use language. Consciousness rolls with political optics, and it's something the world needs to get to know. And I'm thinking this is enough. This amnesty is enough to kick it off. Anyway, conclusion according to the revelation. I better wind it up a bit. Okay. It is the laws that control language that this system is 100% relying on that dictates this way of things. And that's true. I'll read that again. It is the laws that control language that this system 100% rely on that dictates this way of things. They control us exactly the same way anxiety controls language. Observation, because it's an observation, it's the fact of it. They control us exactly the same way anxiety controls language. For the same goal, they use the same premise and practice. The same fierce focus on what the people believe, which is the news pummeling the minds of the country. Every hour, every half hour, an hour on the radio, and every night at 6 p.m. As anxiety parasites off the energies of the mind, they parasite off the energies of society and the resources of the earth. And that's a fact. for their political protectionism, their compulsion to control. They want all the money and they don't want anyone else to have money. Simple as that, man. And they've got this burning desire, because they all believe that anxiety is virtuous, and while you're in that mode, your relationships are automatically configured as a competition, a political competition. And this is the business of domestic violence. It starts out as a political competition, and then people just get pushed right out there and then do shit that the cops don't like, and the cops get caught. And for this reason is what happens. It's political protectionism caused by the belief that anxiety is virtuous. And this can be triggered in someone who believes in courage by being ambushed by someone that believes that anxiety is virtuous, because they know that courage listens. And and because of the other dynamices, we automatically buy into it, because the only way to deal with anxiety is to say stuff, but you're invariably promoting anxiety as wisdom by doing that. And the circular pattern of logic takes over. So here we go, the whole thing of anxiety. Stopping thought, stopping talking, stopping language, right? Second conclusion, knowledge is power, because knowledge is the fuel for the expansion of consciousness. And that's why anxiety behaves like it does, because it's got a compulsion to control, so it has to shut down the expansion of consciousness and make it as small as it can. And that's what happens to people when they get ambushed by anxieties, right? You all experience this, right? Your feelings get hurt. And it's because the anxiety ambush, right, that causes a very abrupt retraction of consciousness. That's why it hurts. And so this is the thing. It's the exact opposite of what happens when you see your friends. Consciousness expands and you feel good. Nothing feels better than that. And so that's the opposite thing. People replicate the function of anxiety, causing a simulated anxiety experience in your mind, and immediately retracts consciousness. It's the forced retraction of consciousness, right? And so that's these ones. Now, I'll say a little bit about Trump and what's going on there, because this is material to the subject of language, right? Now, Trump's gone over to the NATO summit, right? If you look up a video called Trump's Exquisite Chess Moves in Helsinki, this is that video. I'm talking about that video. I saw that video and it's friggin' freaky, man. It's like, whoa, man. And it's actually a very, very critical analysis of language, what the video talks about. Because what it is like, you know how you saw in the news there that Trump was being a buffoon and breaking all the Queen's rules of etiquette? He's doing it on purpose, because he has dethroned the Queen of England in the eyes of the establishment. The public didn't even register. He just looked like a moron, right? But in the eyes of the establishment, he has said that you are dethroned as part of this aristocracy. And this is his words to NATO. He did give them the big rev up, you know, that they're not paying their way and they expect America to pay for it all and do all the work and that, and then you want to do heaps of business with the people that was thinking is the enemy. And so then he went to see Putin. And you know what? I reckon all they talked about is the bloody deep state, because the deep state have invented ISIS. They have invented they are the people smugglers of the refugees going into Europe. They are the big standover to force the governments in Europe to allow the immigrants and be really enthusiastic about the immigrants when they know that it's going to destroy the fabric of their societies. Okay, they've been told they have to do it, and so yeah, there you go. That's what's going on. And I've got a vague memory of it, but it just blew my mind, man. There's all these things going on in public, like the Russia investigation, right? You probably heard about that one. Well, what I've seen in this video, and all the videos on this guy's channel in the months of June and July are material to this, right? It's a kind of an amazing thing to experience something you didn't even know was going on at all. See, Trump's fucking legend, eh? He's actually been, I think the Russia investigation, and how it looks so bad, it's such a load of bullshit. It is just fucking, there's never been any fucking fuck. And so, it seems like the big attack from the Democrats of obstructionism. And it's highly credible to a public that believe that anxiety is virtuous, because of the media. It's the perfect fuel for the media, making themselves look like they're part of the political establishment, right? By replicating anxiety, right? And so what the fuck's going on is this, is that the Russia investigation is Trump's idea. Because you know what, he wanted to do an invisible data search. See, with that investigation doing its thing, they've investigated all these people and all these events and all these time frames and all these computers, all these emails, and actually what they were doing is a big invisible data search of the activities of the deep state. Who actually is involved and who's the boss and whatever's going on. And so masking it as the Russia investigation, Trump's a real smart cookie, man. No one ever even thought of that it was all a fucking con job so Trump could do an invisible data search. And I'm calling it that, invisible data search. He found out all the stuff about everything, and everyone thinks that he's been investigated for Russia collusion. And so it's the ultimate thing, because he doesn't want the deep state to get spooked. He wants to just find all this out, and then find all the people, and then, then he can make his plan about what to do about it. And so that's been really amazing. And the other thing about it is how they're communicating, how the deep state have been communicating through the media, on the news, to people about what they're planning, how to communicate their plans. Because there's certain ways things are said, and it's the political optics of certain things within the camera shot, in relation to what's being talked about. So they could be talking about something, and it's like Trump in his speech. If you watch those videos, you'll see it. But Trump in one of his speeches, he made the sign of a Q. And this is a message to the people. And so this is all the little things, and you won't know. And in the White House, when the lights went out, when Trump was talking, that is very significant, because that is not an accident. That is totally not an accident ever in the White House. And while he was saying something about the intelligence community, and so I think he was saying there that you've got, the only way that things aren't fucking going all, when the public find out about this, when this goes public in the mainstream media, they're safe until it goes public, and then it's all over. So I think he's saying to them that they need to come out and, because they need to come out and give themselves up about it, because Trump has flipped a number of people in their organisation. He's flipped them, and Mr. Strzok was one of those. He was the most biggest idiot, lying piece of crap I've ever seen in the Senate hearing. But actually he'd been flipped by Trump. But he was playing along, he was playing along, and so just going through the motion, just playing lip service. And so this is wild news, man. And this is backed up because the guy QAnon has been, who's in the White House, he's someone in the White House, direct contact with the central government thing, man. And he's been writing this blog thing using all this kind of real, it's like shorthand language. You know, he's got a shorthand style of talking, and this is all just, if you watch that vid, Trump's exquisite chess moves in Helsinki, you'll find out about that. And but anyway, there's a vid, man. It's sub us 2 now, so that's alright. And so yeah, it's quite something. Yeah, seeing this tick over. I've been banned from Radio Live now. I was ringing up and that and sent them some texts, because they're in it. Our media is controlled by this deep state thing, because there's a media blackout on all sorts of things. Okay, they think the white helmets in Syria are the good guys, and everyone knows that they're not even Syrian. They've got over 100 million funding out of England. And the lady there, that parliamentarian lady in England that got killed by that white, you know, the nationalist Nazi, you know, white supremacist Nazi, you know, that woman that got killed in England, yeah, she was actually the head of the NGO that set the white helmets up. Okay, so, you know, all this talk of nationalism, these people aren't nationalists. They just know what our community needs to stay safe, and they know that we've been laughed at and insulted and taken advantage of, and we've been robbed of our wealth. We've been lied to, we're misled, we're taken advantage of, and this is like hideous, man. And so that deep state thing, that all goes into that significant members of the British establishment involved in that. So this is going to be real interesting, man, when they go into it and they pull the pin on it. That's going to be so interesting to see how the landscape changes. Can't wait. I can't wait, man. And so, but for me, the revelation of the 8 laws, that's the saviour, because getting everybody on the same page when it comes to the use of language, that stops everybody acting in a group by themselves. It stops this political protectionism, the theatre that happens, the lies and that happens, the dragging of the feet. See, they got this slow walking of things and dragging the feet, you know, like court cases. And there's this thing where this guy, the cops, it's on the news tonight. See, this guy, he was a foreign guy in New Zealand, and he robbed this shop and that, and he rang up the cops and told him he was in this park, right? And it was dark, so when the cops got there, he says, "Yeah, it's me you're looking for," you know. And they asked him if he was armed, and he said, "Yeah, I've got a gun." And he started holding his arms up like he had a gun. And so they shot him, right? So months and months and months and months and months later, they've told us that, they did an investigation and they found out he actually wasn't armed. Actually, the cops would have known that about, 5 or 6 seconds after they shot him. So why did they need to take all this long? You know, this is to maintain this theatre of apathy. They like to promote the idea that being apathetic is politically correct. According to how consciousness operates and in how the true language is the political optics. they are interested, that the public are apathetic, and they do all this stuff, man. And anyway, so yeah, New Zealand is a prime messed up place, man, because of this belief that anxiety is virtuous. And it's because we really are advocates of consciousness. And so because that's the case, we get ankle tapped really badly. So when anxiety ambushes us, it ankle taps us and we fall real hard, you know, because we actually are really pro-consciousness. You know, that's why New Zealand is like it is. We're pro-consciousness, man, and that's why we get the amazing results we get. But we also fall real hard when anxiety ankle taps us. Okay, and so this is the thing of it. And so I didn't sell my trike, and so otherwise I'd be in Auckland and I'd be fucking running around there, man, telling everyone about this, man. Like all these groups that are trying to help the community function better, you know, improve the quality of life of people that have had that can't function because they are in this toxic environment that's loaded with theatre that people use, and they're all politically protectionist. And so yeah, so I didn't sell my trike, which is really sad. And so hey, look, thanks for watching. I'm thanking Karen, I'm thanking the Sun and Moon Family United, I'm thanking Rich. Pedro became a subscriber, Alvin, and everyone else, man, everyone else. Thank you. We're in it together. We're consciousness, man, and that's the thing of it. And I'm James, and I wish you good night.